Hey dudes, welcome to Splat from the Past, the only 80s themed horror and sci-fi show where things can get totally radical. Now today is a very special episode of Splat from the Past. I have been waiting for this episode, this interview for a long time. I will be interviewing character actress Barbara Whinnery. I've been a big fan of hers for a long time. She is just so talented and so underrated, criminally underrated, I should say. You all know her from such movies as the Empire classic Crawlspace. She played Sister Sarah in Hamburger The Motion Picture. She also had a recurring role on St. Elsewhere. And she was in Hot to Trot, Stewardess School, and so many others. And I'm having her on the show today. I finally was able to get in touch with her after finding her on this Utah theatrical agency, and I could not believe it because I had messaged her on social media when I first started this podcast and no response, but now I finally getting her on and I just can't wait. It's going to be awesome. I have so much to ask, especially about Hamburger The Motion Picture. She's my second interview that I've had from that movie. So, here is my interview with Barbara Whinnery. Hey, Barbara.
Hi, Tony.
Hi. How are you?
I'm good.
Oh, it's such a great honor. Thank you for taking the time today.
Oh, well, I was honored you reached out to me, so that's kind of cool.
Yeah. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So, going back in time, did you gravitate toward acting early on in your childhood?
No, not actually. Not at all. I was a pretty shy kid and was more into science.
Mm-hmm.
And my dad was actually, he was a scientist, a professor of electrical engineering. Mm-hmm. And he and his mom always took us to theater, always took us to musicals, opera, symphonies, live theater. We were near San Francisco, so we would go to ACT, the Gear Theater, that Bill Ball made famous. And so I was always exposed to it.
Mm-hmm.
But then it wasn't until college when I got sick of the science courses and took an acting class just to change it up, and I just got completely hooked.
Wow. Yeah, I'm from San Mateo.
Are you really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Where do you live? Is that where you live now?
No, I left in 2017. I live in Redding, California now.
Why Redding?
I ask myself that same question every day. Well, in 2013, my mother and I lost everything, and we had to live in our car for 4 years. And during that time, I had a really bad car accident, and we just couldn't. We had bad credit. We couldn't find anywhere to live in the Bay Area, so we came up here to get things straight. And now we're trying to get to Los Angeles.
Wow. Oh, so how are you recovered from the accident?
Oh yeah. I mean, I struggle every day though with arthritis and all the pain and everything. But other than that, yeah, I'm pretty lucky.
Oh, wow. That's quite a story.
Yeah.
But. Wow. Well, I ended up somehow in Salt Lake City, so I don't know what I can say. I never thought that would happen.
Yeah.
So I left LA. It's exactly like 4 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
With my daughter, but it's actually really pretty here, and I'm finding that there's a lot of film and.
Mm-hmm. There's lots of
in Salt Lake City, so that's kind of revived my spirit.
Mm-hmm. So when you were in college and you started taking drama classes, is that when you decided that you were going to pursue the business?
Yeah, actually, because then, like, through the college, we went to England and did a play at the Edinburgh Festival, which was just such an amazing experience. And then when I came back, you know, it was just so excited to study acting, and then went to study at ACT in San Francisco, which had, you know, I had never even dreamed I would be there studying. And was in the same class as Denzel Washington.
Oh.
Yeah, which was pretty crazy when, you know, years later we hadn't stayed in touch or anything, and we both showed up on the set of St. Elsewhere.
Right.
So that's a small world.
Wow, that's crazy. Was he like the only one in your class that went on to become successful?
Oh, no. Cynthia Sykes. I don't know if you remember her. She was also on St. Elsewhere.
Oh, yeah. She
was in my class. Delroy Lindo was in my class, and he's been, I don't know, he's been in so many movies, so amazing actor. The Cider House Rules. He was so great in that. And, I mean, he's just done so many things. And trying to think. And then a lot, you know, went on to do more stage than film.
Yeah,
yeah, it was quite an amazing class I was part of.
Yeah.
Anne Gillespie, who was on Beverly Hills 90210, she played one of the Mollifs. She was in my class.
Yeah, Cynthia Sykes, she went on to marry Bud Yorkin.
Yes.
Yeah, the great comedy producer, writer, director. Yeah. I was reading that you studied with Milton Casellas at the Beverly Hills Playhouse. I've talked to many people who were taught by him. For you, though, what did you learn from him?
He was, you know, such an amazing mentor. He just was so insightful. And I guess the main thing is always be ready. You know, that you train and you train and you keep training and you keep training and you're always ready.
Yep.
At the drop of a hat, that always, and that whatever you're working on at that moment is the absolute most important thing in your life. So, like, you know, just the class where, I mean, I studied with him for 10 years.
Wow.
It was just amazing people to be studying with, for one thing, like Doris Roberts was in the class every Saturday. And, you know, so it's like whatever is in front of you at that moment is the most important thing.
Yeah, so he taught you to be present in the moment.
Well, that's something to aspire to. I don't always find it the easiest thing in the world. Yeah, and then in terms of, you know, nothing, it's not like, oh, it's just a scene, or, oh, it's just one line. It's like, this is the most important thing at this moment. Especially me being a character actress, a lot of times I get parts that are not the lead. So it's so easy to sort of, I think, go on, not as important. But I think his teaching was so great because everything is important. You know, you know, he would teach that the peasant makes the king. The king is nothing without the peasant. You know, like a little thing like that.
Yeah. What year did you move to Los Angeles?
Oh my gosh, I'm so bad at years and time. I think it was 70. It must have been 79, because that's when I joined Screen Actors Guild. So, yeah, I think it was 79.
Oh, okay. The first credit listed on IMDb was you did an episode of the short-lived Best of the West.
Best of the West, that was my first guest starring role, except for I actually started before that doing extra work and bit parts on a show you may have heard of called Fridays.
Yep.
Starring Larry David.
Melanie Chardoff. Yeah.
Melanie Chardoff. You know, a lot of people that then went on to be involved with Seinfeld and Curb Your Enthusiasm. A lot of the writers from that went on to work on those shows.
Right.
So I actually learned sort of what to do on a set from that show. And then, yeah, my first guest star was on Best of the West for Paramount. We shot at Paramount Ranch.
Yeah. How was that experience? Were you nervous at all?
Oh, are you kidding? Of course, I'm always nervous. But yeah, I was very nervous, especially because it was shot, except for the part that was at Paramount Ranch, that was on film. But the rest of it was a sitcom where they shot, you know, live action with a studio audience and like a 3-camera. So you rehearsed all week, and then, you know, the producers came in, and if you didn't get enough laughs, something would be cut. If you didn't get enough laughs on that line, that would be cut. And then, you know, on the last day where they actually shoot it with an audience, you know, it's. I was very glad for my stage background because it was. You don't want to be the one messing up. And, yeah, so that was very funny. And Jim Burrows directed it, who was, you know, just amazing in Taxi all those years. And
Cheers.
so that was very exciting.
Yeah, and you had a great cast of legends: Tom Ewell, Leonard Fry, Tracy Walter, Valerie Bromfield, whose sister Lois is actually a dear friend of mine. She's been on the podcast a couple of times.
Oh, wow, yeah. Yeah, it was great. And it was very funny because I was playing much younger than myself. And so the deal with the producer, when he hired me, he was like, you have to tell everybody on the set, you have to make them believe that you're still a teenager. And so that was like kind of funny because they were like going, you know, oh, where do you live? And I'd start to say, you know, I have an apartment. It's like, oh, this is my mom. You know, this whole sort of life that was
that was like
fabrication.
Yeah, that was like right at the height of, you know, the San Fernando Valley girls, you know, oh yeah, as if, you know. Yeah. How does St. Elsewhere come into your life?
That was such a gift, such an amazing experience, and you know, it was so crazy when I had gotten it because of a play that I did at the Almaton Theater. Lillian Hellman play, Another Part of the Forest. I played Birdie, and the casting director had seen the show. And in the course, like when we were rehearsing the play and stuff like that, I heard some of the other actors talking about a pilot for this new show, this new hospital show, how they were hoping to get an audition and all of that. And, you know, but I hadn't really done much TV and hadn't gone up for pilots ever, actually. And so then when it closed, just like a couple months later, I got called in by this casting director to read for this and walked into the audition, and there's a room full of beautiful young girls with blonde, straight, long hair, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm in the wrong place. So, they obviously want something very different than me. And but then when I read the script, and I sort of said, something kind of clicked. Like, I know who she is. So then I went in and read for Kathy Martin and, started the process of callbacks, meet producers, go to network, and that was all rather scary. And so then it was like Friday, and I hadn't heard anything from my agent, and I knew they started shooting on Monday. Mm-hmm. So I just spent the whole weekend so depressed. Like, obviously, I would have heard. And then finally, on Monday morning, I got a call from wardrobe saying, will you come in for your wardrobe fitting? It's like, what? Wardrobe fitting? Oh, wait a minute. I said, yeah, you're shooting tomorrow. Can you get in this afternoon for your wardrobe fitting? And they're like, I haven't even heard anything. So anyway, obviously I went in and had gotten it, but it was sort of like a really interesting lesson, because if you want to know about anything that's going to happen, I found this down the line. Ask the wardrobe person. They are like the first to know of who's shooting what scenes are going to get shot, what actors are in them.
Yeah.
And so that was, and that wasn't the first time like that I heard from wardrobe before I ever even heard from my agent. Which is kind of a crazy thing.
Yeah. That must have been exciting, though, to be on a hit series and make lots of money like that after, doing guest star roles in theater up to that point.
Well, I didn't actually make a lot of money compared to other people.
Right.
But it was a lot of money compared to waitressing. Because, like I said, I had that one guest star credit and, had done theater. And my agent was, a little one-room office, and she didn't have a whole lot of clout. So basically, I was on St. Elsewhere for 4 years. And they always hired me like as a day player, and every time my agent would say, how's it giving her a contract? They would say, oh no, I think we're just going to finish the storyline and then that'll be it. And then they would come up with a new storyline. So I was so lucky that they just wrote such beautiful things for me and got to work with William Daniels, Ed Bailey Jr., and Howie Mandel,
Stephen First. Yeah. Ed Flanders.
Yeah, Stephen First. Yeah, Ed Flanders. Oh, my God. Yeah.
Did you ever work with Ellen Brie?
Oh, of course. Yes.
She's been a guest.
Ellen.
She's been a guest on the podcast, and she is such a sweet lady. I adore her.
I know. She studied with Milton as well. We were in class together and actually did a scene together in class for Milton, which was really cool.
Yeah.
And, so that was just, certainly a highlight. And, one of my favorite episodes was that I did this one whole episode where I had developed a crush on William Daniels, and I was trying to seduce him.
Oh, my God.
Yes. And,
that's ironic, because he was in The Graduate. Yeah.
He didn't really respond the way Kathy Martin wanted him to. But that was really fun to play.
Wow. I gotta see that episode if I can find it anywhere. Were you and the rest of the cast worried when David Burney left the show after the first season?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We were very worried. And it came down to the wire too. Even like Variety had announced that we were going to be canceled, and then miraculously, that next week, then the network announced they were going to give us another season. By the grace of God. So yeah, so it was looking pretty grim there for a bit.
Yeah, you guys also lost G.W. Bailey after that first season. He was brilliant in everything he's ever been in.
Oh, yeah, he was so fun. And,
he was doing MASH at that time.
I remember the 100th episode, they had a 100th episode little party and a big cake. And Howie Mandel, he pushed Brandon Tartikoff's face into the cake. Brandon Tartikoff, you did not do that to Brandon Tartikoff. BC, that was a moment. You should have seen his look on his face. Oh.
Oh, God, that must have been funny. Yeah, I auditioned for America's Got Talent 3 times just so I could meet Howie, and I never got it.
Oh, man.
I love Howie, yeah.
Oh, he was such a prankster.
Yeah, and there's a couple pictures of you two on set on Yahoo Images. They're pretty cute pictures, too, of you and him just smiling into the camera.
Well, yeah, that whole first, 2 seasons were, most of my scenes were with Howie.
Yeah.
And our up and down relationship.
Mm-hmm. You also guest starred on an episode of Murder, She Wrote.
Yes. that was very fun.
Yeah.
It was just on late night. Recently, I got it. That was very funny to see that again late at night.
Yeah, Milton Berle.
Dylan Lansbury, that was really nice because we were shooting in an old theater in the old part of downtown. And, it wasn't really used much as a theater anymore, but on the walls of the theater were plastered all these playbills from musicals, Broadway musicals. So in between takes, Angela Lansbury and some of her, she has very close people that were like her makeup and assistants and stuff like that. They would one would point to one musical and they would just start singing all the songs from the musicals on the wall. She was just amazing.
Yeah, Milton Berle was in that episode too.
Gosh, I didn't remember that.
Oh, you didn't meet him?
No, I just had the one. I think I had 2 scenes that I didn't meet other than Angela Lansbury.
Yeah, I can't believe she's still alive too and she's still working.
She is amazing.
Yeah, what a career that woman has had. I have so much to ask about Hamburger the Motion Picture.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I don't know how much I could say about that.
Well, I'll tell you this first. I have loved this movie since I was 3.5 years old. My mom caught me watching this movie 3 times when I was 3, and after the 3rd time, she took the tape and threw it on the roof. Yeah. My mom, she likes that kind of humor, but she thought I was way, way too young to watch it.
Yeah, I would think so.
Yeah. and I don't hold no grudge, but I'm just saying that I just thought that was hilarious looking back, how young I was. But how did you get cast as Sister Sarah?
I'm sorry, what did you say?
How did you get cast as Sister Sarah?
Oh, just a series of auditions, and, audition, callback. I think there was a couple of them, and there was actually a monologue that Sister Sarah had where she's confessing.
Mm-hmm.
And that was how I got the part, was through this confession, and then they ended up cutting the whole thing, that part of it.
Oh.
But, yeah, that was a crazy movie, because I don't know if you know the whole story of how we started shooting it.
Before you...
Then
go ahead.
They fired the director.
Yes, Lawrence Bassett.
Very early on.
Yes.
And then brought in the new director who called us all together and had the script in his hand, and then he, threw it up in the air and said, all right, you guys are all great at improv. I'm going to count on you to come up with the lines for the show. I'm going to count on you guys to do it. And so luckily there was a lot of, Sandy Hackett. Oh, he's such a brilliant comedian. And
yeah.
So it was definitely a lot of flying by the seat of our pants on that one. And which kind of led to the experience of the students at Hamburger University. They were all flying by the seat of their pants too. And then I was allergic to the chickens.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you remember the scene in the...
Of course I do.
place where, where the whole chickens, destroyed the
truck. Yeah.
Food.
The chicken truck.
Well, not the truck, the actual little fast food restaurant, right?
Yeah, it crashed right into the burger franchise.
Right, and then we had chickens all over, and that was so crazy because it was so hot when we were shooting, and because it was a live set, and they were trying to each day, more and more stuff happened to it. So all the garbage that was lying all around, it couldn't be touched from day to day because they had to match shots.
Mm-hmm.
So by the end of the week, oh my God, did that place stink.
Really?
Oh, yeah. I mean, we were way in the valley. Valencia?
Mm-hmm.
And, it was a couple days over 100, and then for the garbage to build up day after day after day, that was kind of disgusting.
Yeah. The cop, Bob Miner, who brings all the other cops to destroy the place when the bikers break loose. He's going to be coming on the podcast soon. And I had Chip McAllister on last year, and he told me he doesn't remember much about the movie other than that Lawrence Bassett was the original director. He had worked with him on Weekend Pass, and that's how he got in the movie. And his 80-year-old grandmother saw the movie and went, Chip, do you have to say yes to every movie? Yeah. And Sandy Hackett, I reached out to him, and he sent me this long email, first telling me that my podcast is terrible and what I need to do to improve it. And then at the end, he ends with giving me anecdotes about the movie. And he told me that him and Lee McCloskey rehearsed for about 3 weeks on this movie at each other's houses, and they really struck up a bond during that time. And then the movie came out the same week that the Challenger blew up. and everyone was going to see Down and Out in Beverly Hills instead of this movie. Yeah. Do you remember what Sandy Hackett says to you in that orientation scene when he first meets Sister Sarah?
Nope. What'd he say?
He says to you, "Fred Domino at your cervix."
Oh, right. Yeah, that was his line. That was not in the script.
I use that line. I say Tommy Kovac at your cervix whenever I'm doing crowd work in my stand-up comedy.
Oh, my gosh. Who isn't on a date?
Never. Plus, we already met.
Oh, well.
Yeah.
So, but it was cool because I got to work with Lee McCloskey on 2 other shows.
Yeah.
After that, which I just really loved working with him.
Yeah.
Know if you remember his series, The Last Precinct?
No, but I remember he was on Dallas. He was on Dallas, I remember.
Right, but there was a series that was just wacky. Ernie Hudson was in it.
Mm-hmm.
It was like a police farce.
Yeah.
You know, it was like The Last Precinct. That was like the worst. And so that was fun to work with him. And then we worked on when they brought Love American Style back.
Oh, God.
Love American Style. I had an episode with him.
Mm-hmm.
It was an art class, and he was the nude model, and and he was trying to date me, but I was freaked out because he was the nude model.
I'm sure all the women loved seeing him as the nude model.
Well, I mean, it was primetime, so.
Oh, okay.
Wasn't full disclosure there.
When you read the script for this movie, did you just go, "What the fuck is this"?
For which movie? For Hamburger?
For Hamburger, yeah.
Kinda, yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, now that you told me that there's a lot of improv in the movie, that makes sense because there's a lot of stuff that does not make sense. You know, I mean, this is a fast food burger chain that dabbles in customer service and rudeness. You know, it just makes no sense. But you must have been very hot in that Buster Burger nun's habit.
Bright red.
Yeah, did they let you keep it?
No, I didn't even ask, actually. But yeah, the fun part was jumping in the pool in that habit that was like so much fabric.
Yeah, she's kind of a love interest to John Young's Prestapopnik character because they're always sitting next to each other. She flirts with him at the party. He's trying to get to the buffet table, and he grabs your arm and twists you out of the way.
No, he was dancing with me.
That's his way of dancing with you. Yeah.
No, he wanted to dance with me, I'm sure of it.
I love it when you pass out from holding the bull testicle.
Wow, you really did see this movie a lot of times, didn't you?
I've seen it more times than I should mention. Yeah. Then,
how many times did you see Crawlspace?
I've seen Crawlspace. I don't know. I lost count how many times I've seen Crawlspace.
Are you serious?
Yeah, we're gonna get to Crawlspace. Don't worry. But I was curious though. The scene when everyone is doing their oral exam, you, Maria Richwine, and John Young don't have oral reports. Did you have one and it got cut?
No, I never had one.
Okay, because I was thinking maybe because you were telling me about that confession monologue that got cut, I was thinking maybe was that it?
No, the confession one was earlier on, and it was more about confessing having a crush on someone that I knew I wasn't supposed to have because I'd taken these out. Anyway, they didn't figure it worked anymore in the movie, so it got cut.
Oh, okay. How was working with Jack Blessing?
Oh, I love Jack Blessing. Yeah, that was really a treat.
Yeah, we just lost him a few years ago, which shocked the heck out of me because he was so good in everything he was in. And in this movie, this is a really challenging character to play, because he turns into a chicken.
That's always a challenge.
Yeah.
Farm animal.
Yeah, he's a nerd who turns into a chicken. And how about Chuck McCann?
You're testing my memory here. I didn't actually have a lot with Chuck McCann, and I didn't actually get to know him.
How about Dick Butkus?
He was a good guy,
Mm-hmm.
I just, I was a little worried, like, oh my gosh, he's a sports legend.
Of course.
But he had such a good attitude and such a sense of humor about himself.
Yeah.
That to me, that's, what he brought to the movie, and that's made all the difference, I think.
Yeah, that scene, in the Chinese restaurant, the infamous scene, that was one of the scenes my mom caught me watching, and I was watching it with my dad, and she was so mad at him for letting me watch it.
Yeah, I don't blame her. My daughter has not ever seen that movie.
Well, be careful, it's on YouTube.
Yeah. Well, she's actually in her 20s now, so I think I'm not standing over her shoulder watching what she turns on anymore.
I think that's okay.
Yeah.
Charles Tyner, who played Mr. Vunk, he was great. I found out he was an actor studio guy.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. I think he studied with Stella Adler, I think. And he was there at the same time as Paul Newman.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
Wow. That's pretty cool.
You played a hooker in Miracles. Do you have any good stories about that?
That was my very first movie.
Mm-hmm.
That was before Hamburger, and so that was like the first time I went on vacation. It was in Mexico City, and I mean, it was just a very heady experience because, like, they took me shopping on Sunset Boulevard to find my outfit and put me in Ferragamos and these super high heels that I have never worn such high heels since. And it was just, just exciting to be in Mexico City and, movie with Terry Garr, who I thought the world of. I mean, I didn't get to work with the stars because I just had that one scene, and then I had to do that little stunt where I'm like running in these super high heels and I had to jump into a garbage dumpster. So that was kind of, neat. It was like, do you want a stunt double? You think you can do this? I'm like, oh, sure, I can do this. It wasn't as easy as I thought, but I was glad I did it myself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Jim Quoth, to me, he's one of the great and most underrated comedy screenwriters of 80s movies. He's doing TV now. I noticed in interviews he
is? What show is he doing?
I can't remember. I don't watch TV like I used to. But I know him and his partner David Greenwald, they're producing and writing some TV shows that are on now. But they rarely ever talk about the movies that they did in the 80s, except for Class, because, they broke Rob Lowe and John Cusack and all those guys, but they never talk about the movies that they did for some reason. Yeah.
I wonder why.
That's strange. I don't know. Maybe after a while, they just didn't like doing it, and there was a lot of politics they had to go through. I think TV politics are actually a lot harder than movie politics, because they have all these sponsors that they have to answer to and all that.
That's true. It's been interesting, I think I mentioned that there's 2 films I worked on in the last year that, and both were not big budget things, but both were driven, like Clayne Crawford stars in this one, The Killing of Two Lovers, which is just turned out so beautifully, and I, hope it'll get released, but it was accepted at Sundance, so that was really exciting. But, he put up the money because he didn't want to deal with having to answer to 800 people or a big studio or have them tell him how to do it, and so he and the writer-director, who is just also brilliant,
I'm looking
they worked together and they knew what they wanted to do with it, and then they made this beautiful film. So it's, I think it'll go to other festivals. Still waiting to know what, if it'll get picked up from there, but it's definitely worth looking out for.
Nice. Yeah, I'm actually looking up what they've done in TV. Actually, up until a couple years ago, they were doing the show Grimm.
Oh, yeah.
And they worked on Ghost Whisperer when that show was on, but there's nothing currently that they're doing. So yeah, Grimm and Ghost Whisperer. So then, so Crawlspace is one of my favorite Empire movies. How did you get cast as Harriet?
Again, I didn't know anybody on it. My agent got me an audition and then called back, and the next audition, I think I auditioned 3 or 4 times for that. And, David Schmoller, the director, so he cast me and Talia and Carol Francis, who was actually a friend who I knew. So, again, very exciting to go on location and be in Rome. And I got to invite my mother over too. That was like the first time it was like, instead of, mom and dad taking me on a trip, it was like I got to take my mom on a trip to Rome.
Yeah.
Which was really neat.
I've talked to a couple of people who have worked on Charlie Band's Empire movies, and they told me that going to Italy to work on them was just like the best experience ever, because lots of exciting things happened, like, they got to meet the Pope or something like that.
Oh, I didn't meet the Pope. I missed out on meeting the Pope. But it was pretty cool because, I think the Dolls was started shooting when we were still shooting, so that cast was in town, and we'd all get together and have dinner, and and then, just being in Rome is amazing. Oh my gosh, they would serve these lunches. So we'd be on set, and obviously, trying to focus on the work, and then they would break for lunch, and they would serve the most amazing pasta. There'd be red wine on the table, and the lunch would go on for a couple hours. And we're like trying to, it's like, we're not going to drink it. No, we're not going to eat pasta. We'll just have a little, it was just too tempting. So yeah, we had to succumb to some of the amazing Italian food.
Mm-hmm.
And it was so funny, like, as we got into the film, Talia, like, came to me and she goes, when I auditioned, they never asked me to scream, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to scream. She had a lot of scenes where she needed to scream.
Yeah.
So we actually, being a good California girl in the 70s, I was in scream therapy, so I knew how to scream. So we found out that there was like this bus you could take, and it was just like, maybe a 45-minute bus ride through this little town of Pomezia, and then it ended up at the beach.
Mm-hmm.
So a couple of times we got on the bus, went to the beach right during, work days, so there was nobody there, and we would practice screaming.
Mm-hmm.
That was pretty fun.
You got to play a wisecracking neighbor with a southern accent. I love, like, you girls are all at the card table drinking, and you're like, tequila milkshake.
Yeah. It was fun. And then, like, then the rats start coming out of the vents.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was like, so then the director's like, okay, let's have a screaming contest. So he had each of us go around in a circle and scream. And it was pretty crazy.
Were they real rats? Were they real rats?
Not in my scenes, no. We got to imagine the rats. They came in later. I'm not sure if they got some real ones for Talia, because she had a lot more dealings with the rats. Yeah. Yeah. And then working with Klaus Kinski, he was, he was a lot of trouble.
Yep.
He wasn't on camera, but when he was acting, you were acting with him. Oh my gosh! I mean, the intensity, and he'd look at you, and with just like laser-like focus.
Mm-hmm.
So that was, an amazing experience.
Yeah, I had Tanya McClure on 2 years ago, and
yeah, how is she?
She's great. She's great. She's in LA, and she's enjoying life, and everything is wonderful. But when I interviewed her, it was one of the most downloaded episodes I've have of my podcast, because she went high in depth talking about Klaus Kinski sexually harassing her every day on this movie. And then I interviewed two other actresses who worked with him on another movie, and they told me the exact same thing. And David Schmoller, he made a documentary about how difficult he was to work with on this movie a couple of years ago.
He made a documentary of it?
Yeah, it was like a short subject documentary where he was just talking about how he was the most difficult actor he ever worked with, and that they had fist fights on a regular basis during production, which he
threw things. I mean, when I first walked onto the set, I literally had to duck. It was a screwdriver that was past my head. He wasn't throwing it at me,
mm-hmm.
but he didn't. He made David's job pretty difficult. But yeah, he threw things.
There was a horror movie made a year before this called Return of the Living Dead, and Clu Gulager got into a fight with the... he got into screaming matches every day with the director, Dan O'Banion, and one day Dan O'Banion was leaving, and right when he closed the door behind him, Clue threw something at the door that shattered into 1,000 pieces because he was so mad. And to this day, he denies that ever happened. And people who worked on that movie told me, no, it did happen. He just wants to maintain his proper image that he has. And he said it was bad. It was bad. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. But
well, I guess, I was, there were, he went after the beautiful blonde, so.
Yeah.
With me, he just acted, so that I was lucky.
Yeah, your character kind of has a crush on him, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Which is kind of ironic since he was going after the other women, and then I was like going after him. He couldn't care less.
Yeah. But when you're actually on the set with him, was he just very commanding and intimidating like he is on screen?
When he talked to me, which was always just about the acting, he was not intimidating. He was, when you were acting with him, he was a total pro. It was then, in between takes where he would disagree with the director, or he'd have certain things the way he wanted it, but, I walked away with respect for his acting.
Oh, that's good. That's good. And how was Schmoller as a director?
David he's the sweetest man. And, he had written it. As things progressed, he got more and more frustrated because he could not, get Klaus to do what he had envisioned. So that was really difficult for him. And, but in terms of, working with him and, all of us women got along with him great.
Yeah, was Charles Band on the set?
No, I never met him.
I've met him twice at horror conventions. Last time I saw him, he was desperately trying to sell me the Amazon subscription to his movie studio. It was funny.
He doesn't have Empire anymore. Does he have a new movie studio?
Yeah, around 1990 or so, he closed down Empire and started Full Moon Features.
Full Moon Features, that's his. Oh.
Yes.
Okay.
So so if you go on Amazon Prime, all the Full Moon Features movies are the Empire movies.
Oh man, thank you. I'll look at that.
Yeah, and he's still making movies. He's still churning them out year after year. I don't know if anyone sees them, but he's churning them out still.
Does he still shoot in Italy?
No, I think it closed down when I think he closed that studio down when Empire closed down, and he just shoots in Los Angeles now, which is what he did before he went to Italy. Yeah. Do you have any memories of stewardess school?
I have memories of auditioning for stewardess school. And I got stewardess school at the same time I got Miracles. And I went and did Miracles. And I never did stewardess school. But somehow, they never took me out of the credits.
Oh, okay. Because I was like, choosing stewardess school? I don't remember that. I thought maybe you got cut out or something.
No, I had to choose between them because they both conflicted. And, and Miracles shot in Mexico City, so I wanted to go there. But
I've interviewed a couple people from stewardess school, and apparently Columbia knew this was the last teen sex comedy movie that they were going to make. So they put $8 million into it, and it made $136,000 at the box office, which I thought was quite hilarious. When you get a script though for like Stewardess School or Hamburger, is there ever anything in the script that personally offends you?
Is there ever?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, there certainly have been in scripts. I mean, there's certainly been. I mean, those two didn't offend me particularly because they were pretty silly.
Yeah.
But I've been, asked to audition for things that offended me that I just didn't audition for.
Mm-hmm. How about making Hot to Trot?
Oh, Michael Dinner and Pat, that was so fun. No, that I loved. In fact, that one, I just actually bought a copy and gave it to my niece for her kids to show them.
Really? Do they like it?
I don't think they've watched it yet. I was kind of disappointed because I actually really love that movie.
I do too. Bobcat was a hero of mine growing up. He's one of the guys that made me want to become a comedian. I almost met him a couple of years ago. He was going to be coming to the Bay Area to do a series of shows, and then he canceled them. And then in 2016, I went to LA to try to get stage time at the comedy clubs without doing much research. It's really difficult. And a friend of mine who I started out with in the Bay Area, she was doing shows with him at the Hollywood Improv. And I was going to go, and then I couldn't get stage time at the open mic earlier that night, so I just didn't want to stick around, so I left, But I loved him in the Police Academy movies. In fact, that's how I saw, that's how we had Hamburger on tape, because my parents taped me the Police Academy movies and then left the tape running, and then Hamburger was on there.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Was that how that Oh, gosh.
I've heard Bobcat.
Yeah, in fact, Bobcat, he was actually a big inspiration to me because he, in between takes and stuff, and we'd talk, and he had taken in, I think it was one of his brothers or sister's children. That, it was just such an amazing thing. And, he was just talking about, giving this child a new home and making their life work. And that was such an inspiring thing. And it wasn't until years later, but it had always stayed with me that I actually became a foster parent and then adopted.
Oh, that's sweet.
Foster daughter. And, so just that, it's such a surprising, people that see him on screen, you just don't know, like, the depth of what a kind person he is and caring.
Yeah, that is sweet. I love hearing stories like that. I heard him say in an interview the only reason he did the Hot to Trot was because 4 guys walked into a room with a very big check.
I hope it meant more to him than that.
I don't know. I've heard him say, he doesn't mind fans telling him they love the movie, but he's like, I think he's pretty embarrassed by it, just by his branding, in that point in time, I don't know, maybe if he had been offered that movie now, he'd probably do it, but back then, I don't think he thought that it was good for his branding, but he did it because the money was so good,
Maybe, I don't know.
Did you know, though, that Elliot Gould was the original voice of the horse?
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I looked that up. they did a test screening with Elliot Gould doing the voice, and they just thought his voice did not have chemistry with Bobcats. They wanted someone who was funny, so then that's why they got John Candy to take it over.
I had no idea.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty interesting, to have Elliot Gould do the voice of a horse, a neurotic Jewish, horse from New York.
Yeah, I know.
John Candy worked out just fine, You played several different characters on Matlock.
Yes.
Yeah, how was that?
That was one of my favorite shows to work on, because it was just, Andy Griffith was just amazing and so professional, but the show just ran like clockwork.
Yeah.
And, it was just, everybody was at the top. That whole thing of being ready, everybody was at the top of their game on that show, if they were around Andy, and he was so fun to work with or to watch, because every take he would add something new. He would add a mannerism, or he would add, like, we were shooting one cartoon scene and a button fell off of his shirt. And, they go, cut, and wardrobe comes running over to someone. He's like, no, let me play it. And so he, used that there was, a button off of his shirt and the next, and kept adding things about that. And so it was always such a delight to work on that show.
Yeah, and that show was a very big departure for lawyer shows, because up until then, you'd see a tough guy like Perry Mason or some Jewish shyster district attorney character. But with Matlock, he really brought a classic Southern lawyer to the small screen that hadn't really been seen much up to that point, and he became iconic that way because it's Andy Griffith.
Yeah, and then I loved doing the one, it was called The Brothers with Christopher Tabori.
Mm-hmm. I remember that show.
My character had a nose job and was just furious at the doctor that Christopher Tabori played, and got involved in this whole murder thing.
How about when you did the short-lived Aaron Spelling series, Sunset Beach?
That was so sad how short-lived it was. Again, I got to play a nun. I actually kind of like playing nuns. And that I actually got because a dear friend of mine, Jane Atkins, was one of the writers on the show. Mm-hmm. And she, at that time, I was being a foster parent and finding out how difficult it was to be a single mom. And so that was just like a total gift that she started writing me into the show. And they were just starting to develop my character when they got cut and canceled, which was sad.
Yeah. I remember Aaron Spelling was interviewed for the Archive of American Television, and he said that when he went to go pitch this show to NBC, he spent 2.5 hours looking for NBC studios because he had never done a series for them. He had done, CBS and ABC, but he couldn't find NBC studios for 2.5 hours, he said. He says that was the first thing he remembered about doing that series. So you said you moved to Utah 4 years ago?
Uh-huh.
So what happened? Did just LA get to be too much? You couldn't get work out there?
When the recession hit, 2008, it was also when it was like we were finalizing the adoption with my daughter, who was she'd been living with me, but for years, but as a foster child, she was always going to be reunited with her family. And then the adoption came through, and then it was all up to me to support her. So I didn't quite have the availability just to drop everything to audition all the time.
Yeah.
And then the recession hit, and I just had to work full time, more a regular job, and so I wasn't acting as much, and plus, you heard from other women of a certain age in Hollywood are not quite as welcome in the audition room, should I say.
Yeah.
So all that was kind of happened all at once, and, and it was, a tough time for a few years, and then at the same time, my parents had passed, and then the rest of my family left California, and they all kind of ended up in Salt Lake City because they are all in medicine, and Salt Lake City is amazing for medicine, top of the line in every specialty. So they all moved here, and then my daughter and I spent a couple of years still in California, but holidays were really rough because they were like, whoa, it's the best. And so we decided to join them, and we had kind of gotten stressed out in LA. I think my daughter had been asking to leave for a while, so we just thought we'd try it, and it's turned out to be really great.
Wow. Yeah, because
really pretty. I mean, I don't know if you've ever been here, but
no.
I always thought of Salt Lake City is pretty dull.
Osmonds.
And,
yeah.
And conservative. And, the state is super conservative, but Salt Lake City is actually pretty liberal. And it's surrounded by the most beautiful mountains. And then 20 minutes away is Park City, which is very liberal. And, just a haven for film and artists. And so all of that, it was just, I've been delighted to be discovering and then to be able to get an agent here and do a couple films. I'm like, oh, wow. It's been actually really exciting.
Yeah, that's wonderful, Barbara. It's funny, I've talked to so many actors who got out of the business, and usually when I find out the reason why they got out of the business, it's usually because it goes back to the recession in 2008, or it just goes back to the oversaturation of Hollywood caused by the internet. Occasionally it'll be, some women got out of the business because of, the casting couch stuff that happened in the 80s or the 90s, But a lot of it I have found has been the recession and the internet, just making it so difficult for older actors to get work out there.
I mean, the recession, and it was so sad. I mean, my commercial agent completely went under. I mean, so many agencies had to close. And sadly, my wonderful theatrical agent, I mean, he kept it going. Joel Kleinman, BKI, but he passed away just 2 years ago, quite unexpectedly. So that.
Do you do any theater in Utah?
I haven't yet. There is quite a bit here. I haven't done theater. The last thing I did was the last of the Red Hot Lovers at the Odyssey Theater in LA, and that was a decade ago. And so I'm kind of, it's funny, I'm actually more nervous about doing theater. But
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I will or not. Maybe I will.
Did you do a lot of theater when you were out in L.A.?
I did a lot of theater in LA. Yeah, I did. I had that, great show at the Amazon, which was amazing. But other than that, I would always do, the little small theaters in town, and was part of the Ensemble Studio Theater West. So we were always sort of working out there.
Mm-hmm.
Did a couple plays. Like 3 different plays, actually one that I wrote through Milton in the Beverly Hills Playhouse,
Mm-hmm.
and one play that Doris Roberts directed, and I did a play with Talia Balsam, actually, after we had worked on the film in Santa Barbara with Valerie Bertinelli. We did Vanities.
Oh.
It's just the 3 of us, and that was so fun.
Mm-hmm. Oh, wow. Yeah, have you ever thought about maybe reviving that play you wrote in Utah?
I thought about it, yeah. I'm now way too old for the part, so I'd have to find someone to play me.
Yeah, you could do that.
I don't know. It's funny.
You mentioned to me in an email about the 2 new movies, and you referenced one of them earlier and stuff. How much can you talk about those?
Well, I can't say much,
Mm-hmm.
because, like I said, they haven't been released, but, I can probably say The Killing of 2 Lovers, was in the Sundance Festival, and Hollywood Reporter chose it as one of the top 20.
Mm-hmm.
So that was really exciting. And then the other one, I can't say much about, except for I can give you the title of it. It's
Mm-hmm.
The Werewolf.
Oh, it's a werewolf movie?
My second horror film. But it's not your typical one, I can tell you that. And the writer-director, Jim Cummings,
Mm-hmm.
is an amazing talent. He also stars in it. He stars, directed it. But he did a film that won at Sundance a couple years ago called Thunder Road.
Mm-hmm.
If you ever get a chance, I think you'd really like that.
I've seen the Robert Mitchum movie, Thunder Road.
The what?
The Robert Mitchum movie, Thunder Road, I've seen.
Oh. Well, this is probably pretty different than that.
Mm-hmm. Well,
anyway, so yeah, kind of all I can say.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you got those movies going on and that everything's working out over there in Utah and stuff. It's funny, whenever I hear stories like that, I always feel sad because, I loved seeing the actors, when they were working in movies and in television, out in Hollywood and stuff. But at the end of the day, it's whatever makes them happy, whatever best for them, and especially as they get older.
Yeah, it's, you have to make a choice, like, all the time, like, what's the most important thing to me? And I don't know, the older I get, it's, the answer sort of comes down to family.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for most people, I think it's that way. So, Barbara, there's this game that I like to play with my guests. It's kind of the anti James Lipton questionnaire on Inside the Actor Studio. It's slumber party questions. And how this works is I ask you the question, you answer it, and then you ask me the exact same question, and I answer it.
Okay.
It's a lot of fun. A lot of guests love this game. So, Barbara, are you ticklish?
Yes. Tommy, are you ticklish?
I am baby ticklish, yes. Is your belly button an innie or an outie?
Innie. And yours?
It's an innie. What color are your toenails painted?
Black. And are your toenails painted?
They are not at the moment, but last time they were purple with sparkles.
Oh.
I like to do elaborate colors. I've been like that since I was 13. And then my favorite question, is there a stinky smell that just makes you gag? Like chickens?
Yes, I would say sewer water.
Oh, that's a new one. I haven't heard that one yet.
And what makes you gag?
Either farts or feet.
Yeah.
It'd be pretty bad. They could be pretty bad. Well, Barbara, this was so amazing. I'm so glad I found you, because when I started this podcast 3 years ago, you were one of the first ones that I reached out to on Facebook, and I had never heard back, but I'm glad I found that website on Yahoo, because this was just so amazing for me. To me, you're one of the most criminally underrated character actresses.
Oh, that's so kind of you to say, and and I'm sorry I don't do too much social media, so.
Well, you're smart not to.
I always end up getting locked out of my Facebook for very long periods until I can go to my daughter and say, what happened? And she fixes it for a while, and then I get locked out again. And so
you got to write down your password.
That would be a good idea.
Yeah, get one of those Post-its, and just write on there and just stick it on the computer.
Yeah, but then you have to change it when you're somewhere else, and then you don't rewrite it. I don't know. Anyway, that's my own personal failing.
Mm-hmm. Well,
but thank you so much, and I wish you and your mom the best.
Oh, thank you so much. And yeah, I mean, when you can talk about those movies more in depth, you're more than welcome to come back on.
Oh, great! Yeah, because I think I'm just small parts of them that I think they're exciting movies to watch, and exciting young movie makers who are going to do a lot in the future. So
yes, thank you for being my Yes, thank you for being my 699th guest today.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah. when you live up here in Reading, there's nothing to do, so I podcast a lot.
Well, good. That's very, I think, proactive and creative thing to do.
Mm-hmm. It keeps me young.
Well, you are young, so.
I know. I feel like I'm a lot older. I've done so much in my life so far. Well, you have yourself a wonderful day, Barbara.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All the best.
You too.
Bye.
Okay, bye-bye. Well, there you have it. Barbara Whinnery. Ain't she a sweetheart? Oh my God, sweet lady. Great stories. Great sense of humor. I love her a lot. And I'm glad I waited this long. Or I'm glad, it took this long for me to interview her. It's just so amazing. If you like this video, everyone, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Add me as a friend on Facebook. Join my Tommy Kovac comedian page on Facebook. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram and all that fun stuff. Well, that's all time we have this week on Splat from the Past. Until next time, this is Tommy Throwback Kovac saying, there's no shame in living in the past, because the present sucks. Later, dudes!